This video is sponsored by Audible. Also, this video contains many spoilers for films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, including Avengers Endgame. So I rewatched a bunch of Marvel movies this past month. I guess the idea of a global calamity seems really relevant these days. Hi, I'm T1J.
Follow me.
This video, like all my videos, would not be possible without my members and patrons, including homies like William Ryan, Felipe Visson, Lisa Jacobson, and Adam McDermott. If you'd like to support the channel, you can become a homie yourself by clicking the join button beneath the video or by checking out my page on Patreon. A lot of people might argue that the main character in the group of films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that make up the Infinity Saga is Tony Stark. And it makes sense. The story begins with the birth of Iron Man and ends with his death. Over the course of many films, we watch as Stark evolves from an arrogant billionaire womanizer who only cares for himself to an arrogant billionaire family man who was willing to sacrifice himself to save the universe. And there's no doubt that Tony Stark is pivotal to the development of these films. But I'd argue that the real main and most important character of the saga is none other than Steve Rogers himself, Captain America. Now, old Cap isn't the guy who's piloting spaceships across the galaxy or figuring out the formula for time travel, but he arguably has the most important job of all, getting all these larger-than-life personalities to play nice with each other long enough to save the population from the frequent world-shattering events that seem to threaten them.
He's pretty good at that.
Right? Seriously, almost every MCU movie to date, except the ones that take place in the past, like Captains America and Marvel, takes place plot-wise roughly around the same time the movies were being made. So that means there have been no less than 5 catastrophically destructive events over the span of only about 10 years in this universe. But actually, now that I think about it, that's not that much different from real life. But anyway, Captain America is a man in an unfamiliar world with old-fashioned morals who finds himself surrounded by super-powered lunatics who have been jaded by their circumstance in one way or another. In a way, Cap keeps the audience grounded. Whenever we're unsure whether the heroes are going to be okay, we can look to him. You see, every hero has an impressive suite of powers and abilities, but only few heroes have what I like to call super moral insight. It is the superhuman ability to always know the right thing to do. Now, depending on the story, any protagonist might have this power. Shit, the average sitcom dad has this power. But in the MCU, the only person who seems to consistently is Captain America. So if you're a person with special abilities or superhuman powers, but you're not a genius scientist billionaire or a genetically enhanced super soldier or a literal god, it can be hard for you to find your place in the mix. Especially when you're asked to join a bunch of other special people to defend the world from annihilation on more than one occasion. One way to go about it is to do your own thing, study your craft, and try to make yourself known. If you're good enough at what you do, people will notice and let you contribute, even if you're reckless or kind of an asshole. Another way to go about it is to try and find someone else who always seems to have the right ideas and just do whatever they tell you to do. It's not the most glamorous position, but it does ensure that your skills are always used in the best way possible. As we've discussed, the guy who always has the right ideas is Captain America, and an example of a character who realized that is Sam Wilson, also known as Falcon. Despite the fact that he receives a pretty decent amount of screen time, Falcon seems to be rarely mentioned in discussions about the MCU. You might say his powers are kinda whack, like, oh, he has wings, cool. But listen, how many heroes can fly in the MCU? Let's see, there's Iron Man, Vision, Star-Lord, Doctor Strange, Wasp, War Machine, and Thor. And then I guess there's Valkyrie with the Pegasus and Pepper in the rescue armor, and that's it, I think. Maybe Wanda, but she mainly just kind of jumps, so I'm not sure. So there's a few. But when you got like 30 motherfuckers running around, and this is not even counting the vast armies of Wakanda or Asgard or the Sorcerers or the Ravagers, many of whom spend half their time across the world, if not the universe, being one of the only like 10 people who can fly is pretty useful. Also, he has the coolest flying scenes in my opinion. And he doesn't just fly. He was 100% the MVP of the mission at the beginning of Civil War. Beyond that, Falcon is an Air Force soldier in a universe where the War on Terror was a good idea. He's highly trained in combat and firearms. Because of his skills as a soldier, he was selected to pilot the experimental Exo-7 Falcon harness. That's what the wings are called. Anyway, it's not always about the superpowers, it's about the character. Look at the Guardians of the Galaxy. What do they even do? This guy shoots guns. This lady can fight good. This guy is strong. Rocket is, I guess, a genius engineer and pilot, which is kind of cool. But Groot has easily the most powerful and interesting skill set. But it doesn't matter because the characters are so engaging and likable that Guardians of the Galaxy ended up being the best MCU movie that doesn't feature Shuri. Sam Wilson was played by Anthony Mackie, who seems at least in interviews to be a guy who likes to goof off and joke around with his friends. And this carries over somewhat into the character of Falcon. He's known to drop a one-liner every now and then.
I don't know if you've been in a fight before, but there's usually not this much talking.
But the character also has a strong moral compass and sense of duty, a trait he shares with Captain America. Now, as you might have guessed, I like seeing black people in movies, especially big Hollywood blockbusters. Not only does it mean that black actors are getting work, but I firmly believe that media representation is essential to shaping our society's ideas about diversity. Not to mention inspiring current and future generations to achieve what may not have been possible for them in the past. And things are getting better over time, for sure. But comic books in general were way ahead of the curve in terms of depicting complex people of color. By the 70s, many great black comic book heroes and villains have been established. Not just Falcon, but characters like Black Panther, Black Lightning, Black Mariah, Black Manta. No, I'm just kidding. Even back then, there were many amazing black characters who didn't have the word black in their name. Storm, Jon Stewart, Luke Cage, Blade, Misty Knight, War Machine, and many others. And in later eras of comics, we got even more cool black characters like Spawn, Static, Firestorm, Bishop, and Amanda Waller. And the Marvel Cinematic Universe honors the source material fairly well by having quite a few major black characters. Only one of them got their own movie, but I guess we take what we can get. So the character Sam Wilson debuts in the film Captain America: Winter Soldier. And to start off, we're really only told a couple things about him. He's a war hero who has spent his time since leaving the military helping veterans who are dealing with PTSD. So we already know this guy's cool. Also, amazing taste in music.
Marvin Gaye, 1972 Trouble Man soundtrack.
Now, outside of Black Panther, I wouldn't really say the Marvel movies are particularly woke or socially progressive. There are token gestures here and there. There's a brief acknowledgement that gay people exist. There's that one scene in Endgame where all the women are together. I actually really love this scene. I might do a whole bonus video just talking about that scene. But I do think it's cool that in a movie franchise where so many of the characters are soldiers or kings or politicians, they take at least a little time to acknowledge that PTSD exists and that all this warmongering and conquest can have a real psychological effect on people. Now, much has been debated about how Thor's PTSD was handled in Avengers Endgame, with some saying that the writers used Thor to make light of a serious issue and also to make a bunch of fat jokes. It's a fair criticism with which I don't fully agree, but that discussion is outside the scope of this video. In general, I just think it's cool the films acknowledge that these things happened. Apparently even to gods. Either way, this brief scene of Wilson with the veterans serves to immediately inform us of his strong moral character. I mean, Tony Stark is cool and all, but can you really see him volunteering his time to a veteran support group? Later in the movie, Captain America and Black Widow seem to have no one left that they could trust. But Steve remembers his new friend Sam, who offers his full assistance, including his nifty Falcon wings, with no hesitation whatsoever. It might seem kind of odd and unbelievable that Captain America would turn to this guy that he literally met just a few days ago for this delicate and dangerous mission, and also that that guy would be so immediately down for the cause. And maybe it is a little bit of a stretch, but Steve met Sam Wilson just before learning that the agency he was taking orders from had been compromised by modern-day Nazis. Wilson had recently quit the military, which is apparently something you can do in this universe, because he lost his friend and fellow soldier during an operation overseas. When Steve learns of Sam's disillusion with the military and his newfound freedom to pursue the causes he personally cares about rather than simply taking orders, this is pivotal to the captain's growth into the renegade soldier we've all come to love.
But you happy now? Back in the world?
Hey, the number of people giving me orders is down to about 0. So hell yeah. What you thinking about getting out?
When Nick Fury wants to try to re-establish S.H.I.E.L.D. after Hydra is defeated, Steve quickly insists that S.H.I.E.L.D. itself needs to be destroyed as well. When the Avengers are faced with the Sokovia Accords, meant to rein them in and make them subordinate to the government, Captain America does not hesitate in his refusal to be a part of it. I don't think he would have been so quick to make these decisions had he not met Sam Wilson. Sam taught him that you can do the right thing without taking orders or wearing a uniform, and sometimes it's the only way you can. In Winter Soldier, Captain America decides to wear a uniform anyway, perhaps an old school reminder of when things were less complicated, when you knew who the good guys and bad guys were. Like the guy whose head is a blood red skull, that's probably the bad guy. But in later appearances, Captain America has dropped his gaudy uniform, having fully realized that his skills are best used when he's his own man. He only returns to a classic version of his costume during the final campaign against Thanos, knowing that in spite of his troubled history, he still remains a symbol of hope in a broken down world.
If you're gonna fight a war, you gotta wear a uniform.
Sam, on the other hand, was clearly looking for an opportunity to serve his country and his fellow man on his own terms. So when Captain America showed up at his door, it's easy to see why he was so eager to help. Sam, being a strong-willed and morally resolute person, was able to quickly notice these same virtues in Steve. Of course, after meeting the man, but also no doubt after hearing the many stories about the legendary hero Captain America. And like I said before, if you're gonna follow someone's lead, Captain America is the person you wanna follow. And Falcon leads into the sidekick role pretty hard. Like, a lot of people might feel ashamed to be someone else's sidekick, but Falcon is super down. And again, I think it's because he knows he's on the right team.
Don't look at me. I do what he does, just slower.
Now, it might seem that Falcon is just a lackey who does whatever the captain wants, but he's definitely not afraid to speak up or even question Steve if he feels it's necessary. A cool thing about this character is that he's perfectly able to assume responsibility and make the correct calls when the time is right. Like when he took charge during the fight at the airport with his fellow Avengers so that Steve and Bucky could escape to Siberia.
This isn't the real fight, Steve.
All right, Sam, what's the play?
We need a diversion.
Or when he was able to immediately determine that he should tell Tony Stark where Steve and Bucky were going, even though Tony was technically his enemy at the time. At the end of Avengers Endgame, Steve decides to go back in time and live a full life, returning to the present as an old man. When left with the decision of who to pass on the title of Captain America to, a lot of people expected him to choose Bucky, his lifelong best friend. And although the bond between Bucky and Steve is strong, there really was no other choice but Sam. Captain America is more than just a super soldier. He's a beacon of hope and a righteous leader you can always put your trust in. And no other Avenger besides Falcon steadily displayed that consistency of character. So I guess Captain America can fly now. I know this is a bit different from my normal videos, but I might start doing more stuff like this in the future. I hope you don't mind. Anyway, I just thought Falcon was an underrated character and I just wanted to talk about it. That's just me though. What do you think? Thanks for watching, and thanks to Audible for sponsoring this video. Audible is the best place to go for audiobooks and other digital spoken word entertainment. They have an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and so much more. With a membership, you get one free audiobook every month alongside Audible originals you can't hear anywhere else. And unlike a rental or streaming service, with Audible, you own your audiobooks. Did you know that there were audio adaptations of comic book stories? Well, there are. If you'd like to experience the inspiration for one of the biggest MCU movies ever, check out Civil War, an audio adaptation of the famous Marvel Comics arc. So if you'd like to give that or any of the vast library of content available on Audible a listen, you can get a free 30-day trial by going to audible.com/T1J or by texting T1J to 500500. That's audible.com/T1J or text the code T1J to 500500. During your trial, you can choose one audiobook as well as 2 exclusive Audible originals absolutely free. And remember, by supporting sponsors like Audible, you not only get access to a great service, but you also support me and help me take my content to the next level.